In this video, I'll be talking about my architecture school project that ended up winning an award in the faculty for the best residential project of the year. I'll also go more in depth with the little quirks of the project. Here and there, I'll break down sort of like my thought process when introducing certain design elements into our project. Like this outrageous bar fight that I included in our drawings, I'll explain in a bit. So we did this project in pairs, so me and my partner we introduced a whole cluster of new facilities and things into this neighborhood. So these new facilities include a library and coffee shop, the reading room, an inner courtyard, a bathhouse, and a brewery extension to the existing pub that was already on the site. And for the private spaces, of course, we got the two residential buildings. So we have a mid-rise and a point tower. What we thought was most appropriate was that we actually just pushed the residentials all the way to the back of the site, and then we had sort of the front area be dedicated to sort of the public spaces. So how me and my partner decided to split up the work was that I would take over sort of the left side of the site, and then she would take care of right side of the site. So we're going to start off with my public spaces, the library and the reading room. Right off the bat, you notice that my reading room is raised from the ground. And the reason for that is to sort of cater to the existing Parkdale market. It's one thing to recognize that sort of challenge, but it's another to actually figure out how to create a sort of relationship between, our new design and that market. One of my precedents was this one building at SFU. Basically, that's also sort of like a raised building. And the point is, as a sort of like a grand view, it feels like sort of like a boundary where it separates, the outside from the inside. But then on the ground level, where us normal people, there's space for people from the Parkdale market to bleed into our site, sort of seamlessly flow from the ground level. Once you're actually in it, you now feel like you're actually enclosed and you are really engaged in the space. Yeah, also like that street that sort of separates our site from the Parkdale market. In person, when we actually visit the site, I realized that like this street is actually a very jaywalkable street. Having people bleed into our site was actually a very realistic goal. The circulation wise, that's sort of how it works. In terms of like the actual form of that reading room was actually inspired by the elements around our site. I think during one of our earlier critiques was that what makes this building so unique to the site, where I cannot just take this building and copy and paste it into 10 different other sites. I thought about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, you know what, in some ways you're right. So I decided to do this little sort of what I call a mirror or mimicry kind of method, where I, for example, in a plan view, this is kind of what the Parkdale market looks like. And so I decided to mimic and mirror that attribute over to our site. So as you can see, just like the Parkdale market, my reading room is an L shape. Over on the left side of the site, there's this really weird long building. I think it's some sort of like historic building or whatever, but I decided to also use that mirroring. It's also, an L shape. So I decided to bring that over as well, and that sort of further strengthens my justification for the exact shape of it. In the Parkdale park, there's this swimming pool in the middle, and so I decided to take that, mirror it, and bring that over to our site, and we converted it to some sort of really shallow pond. Also, another thing with like my reading room space is that like it's a very weird inspiration, but then like basically I sort of got this idea from Brentwood Mall in Vancouver, the food court. The food court, you guys might be thinking, the food court, what the hell you want? There was one time me and my friend, we decided to go there to study. Well, it wasn't my idea, actually, it was my friend's idea. But when we actually got there, I was just like, are you telling me that we're gonna study at a food court? But then when I actually got there were so many students there. I was like, what? I was like, what is going on? But then oddly enough, there was like a huge sort of space where a lot of people were just studying there, and so it was from that experience where I just realized like students will study anywhere as long as you bribe them with a power outlet. That's why sort of this reading room, it feels more like a more bigger, sort of grander space, because then I also want that bit of liveliness. Another little very subtle and small detail was that like along the reading room follows sort of like the perimeter of the site. The inner and the outer side of the reading room is both glass. The way I organized the furniture was that like the people who are coming to the reading room to, you know, have conversations, those seatings are placed on the outside, the windows facing outside of the reading room. You know, you get to see sort of our surrounding environments, the cars moving by the streets and sort of the people. But for the people who are actually there to like study and do work, that sort of seating arrangement is facing sort of the inside of the site. And obviously the reason for that is like, you know, that's sort of like in more introverted space. As for the actual library itself, you know, at first glance, like you might not even notice it at first, but it's basically this giant concrete brick. By itself, obviously, like the flat face of like the library, it's kind of lame, right? But if we see that library as in the context of, you know, everything else around it, it's actually a very, very strong contributor to like sort of the overall design. If we circle back to that shallow pond, during the winters, I would imagine that this shallow pond can freeze up and people can host some sort of skating sort of events where, you know, people are invited from everywhere, not just, you know, sort of this specific neighborhood, to come and skate during, let's say, like, you know, the spring or the summertime when it's a little bit hotter outside. This shallow pond by itself, it can actually cool the space around it. So, and also with like the benches that are like along the shallow pond, it sort of creates some sort of hangout spot during summer nights. When the sun is setting and the air is getting cooler, they could even drain the pool so then people can sit inside of it, and the library could pick out a movie for movie nights and they would project it onto the flat concrete wall of the library. With the reading room, they can also obviously open that up so people can go upstairs and they would sit, and everything's just directed at that flat wall. So this drawing by itself explains a lot with sort of like this ground level public space. So on the left, we see sort of exactly how, you know, people from the Parkdale Market could just bleed and flow seamlessly into our own site. I like to think of it more as like, you know, with my reading room, I'm sort of like hijacking customers from the Parkdale Market into our own site. But yeah, you know, ground level, it's very seamless, but on the second level, it sort of feels like a boundary, an invisible boundary that sort of locks you in once you do enter sort of the central area of the site with the body of water. The left side, we see sort of the library and the flat concrete wall. Because I decided to create like an extra floor in the library, I was able to sort of separate the residential a bit better from the public space so I can actually be, you know, a little more private. Now we're going to talk about the programs that my partner Aniko introduced into the site. One of the significant proposals that she suggested was the preservation and revival of the Carlton pub. On this site, there is this pub, and it has, you know, quite a bit of history, and it's also the only building that is open past midnight. During the development of the project, we were asked to actually take that building down. My partner was like, what happens if we actually preserved it? How valuable would that be? I'm like, okay, wait, but that's actually like a pretty good challenge. How are we actually gonna, because, you know, like, look at the building, it's disgusting. Like, I'm like, how? Like, but you know what? My partner came clutch, you know, she made it work. And so what she decided to do was not only keep the whole building there, but also she decided to create an extension in a new element for this old tavern to sort of fit in to the rest of the design, which is obviously going to be more modern. You know, how exactly she came up with that idea was actually kind of a funny story. So we visited the site once, but then she wanted to do it again because she was like, okay, I need a second trip. So she decided to visit by herself. She ended up drinking and then getting a little drunk. While she was there, she noted how disgusting the beer was because, like, it didn't make their beer or anything. What she thought was like, okay, why don't I just actually build a brewery, an additional space or an addition to the pub where they can actually brew their own beer, and in that way they can actually even elevate their pub by, you know, having new drinks and stuff like that, which would obviously attract a lot more people. We decided to encase in sort of like this glass casing, almost like a trophy case, which is actually very fitting because then like the mechanics and stuff was very shiny and silver and very extravagant. So I know like a very lazy approach to like preserving like a building like this is just to leave it there. But then most people would kind of just like ignore it, kind of just like, okay, we kept it. See, are you happy now? It's kind of like the equivalent of like when you want to go out with your friends and then your mom tells you to bring your little brother with you, but then you obviously don't want to. So that normal approach of like preserving something, it's kind of like that. It's kind of just like, okay, I preserved it, that's it. Okay, whatever. But our way of like sort of preserving was actually just inviting, you know, our little brother into the conversation with the rest of the friends and stuff like that. And I think was successful in doing so, in doing exactly that. And so in honor of keeping the pub in its place, honestly, I thought it would be really funny if I added like a little Easter egg where like in my drawings I would have like just like this huge bar fight in front of it, just to show like sort of just how much more traffic that the pub would be getting after getting the extension. I presented these drawings to like the professors and the jury, like I don't think anybody noticed. But and also another small detail was like I added a car crash in like this little corner here by the intersection, which I don't think anybody noticed either. But Aniko's second program that she introduced into the site was a bathhouse. But yeah, you don't really see a proposal like that very often. Her inspiration for that was like, I think during like spring break, she decided to travel to New York, and in New York she visited a bathhouse, and it was like this 2-floor bathhouse, and it was gigantic. And so she thought like that would have been like a really good proposal for a place, especially like Ottawa. If you guys don't know, Ottawa is very cold. Just imagine sort of like a space where you can actually escape from those extreme conditions and to come to like this very warm bathhouse where it's actually sort of like a community building space, because now you're like in this very warm environment with other people, and then, you know, conversations get going and stuff like that. I think we did our research, like there was like no bathhouses in Ottawa. They did not have a single one. The closest thing is a sort of like a spa or whatever, but then like no one's paying like $80,000 for like a spa session. So now my partner included like a whole bunch of amenities and stuff in the actual bathhouse, because it actually is like 2 floors. Basically, you know, there's stuff like, you know, the actual bathhouse itself, the cooler bath areas with like colder water, then a sauna. But then on the second floor, there is actually a cafeteria that she introduced. You know, once you're all very warm and cozy, you kind of want to eat, right? And on the second floor, there's even like a bridge that connects the bathhouse to the pub. Take a quick bath, get pissed drunk afterwards. You know, it all kind of works out, which actually further justifies sort of like that bar fight in the front, because, you know, take a bath, you get pissed drunk, then you start fighting outside. So that concludes the public space on the ground level. Now we're gonna move on over to our residential. Now, the setup is actually very unique. There's like this weird thing in the middle. And you're probably wondering, what the hell is that? This is what we're calling a circulation tower. Basically, we decided to extract the core from my building, bring it out into sort of an exterior individual sort of tower by itself. The reason for that is it actually frees up a lot of space on the inside. So then my building could be way more dedicated to just being a straight up residential building with, you know, all its units. Because we took the core outside, this core can be shared between the 2 buildings. Of course, the point tower has its own core by itself. Yeah, you can also even see like the corridors, they go all the way. The front of the circulation tower is all sort of frosted glass. It's backlit with white light, but then I added different lights for the elevators in the front. So then when people are taking the elevator up and down, so that circulation tower, people from outside of the building can actually see that. So it actually looks like the building is alive. As for the actual units itself, you know, like I couldn't be bothered to like spend too much time on that. I mean, like, the units are units, right? They're just boxes. Every single combination possible has probably already been figured out. So we kind of just did very normal, typical apartment unit sort of layout. So yeah, nothing too special there. Yeah. yeah, but that's just about, yeah, my whole project really. I did finish this project a long time ago. You know, I've been meaning to make a video about it, but yeah, but I would like to hear from you guys. You know, what do you think about the project? Now that I'm like fully graduated now, I'm probably gonna be doing more videos like this where I'll be just talking about my projects and stuff like that. So if you guys want more of that, let me know in the comments. But if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It's free. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.